Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Real Talk, our campus weekly video series where we discuss relationships, empathy, advocacy, and life. All of our episodes are pre-recorded and released every Tuesday at 5 p.m. on our IGTV. And today's episode, our topic or theme of this episode is navigating breakups. And on the note of navigating breakups, Sydney has an announcement because she's kind of breaking up with me in a way. So I'm going to pass it over to Sydney to share her announcement.
Thank you. So first and foremost, Cara and I are not breaking up because we are still best friends no matter what's going to happen. But some exciting news that I have to share is that I have accepted a new position outside of the Women's Center and will be leaving my role as the Director of Campus Counseling and Advocacy on the end of this fall semester. So December 16th will be my last date working for the Women's Center, but so that's kind of how we're like breaking up a little bit, I guess.
As co-workers, but not as friends.
Co-workers, but Real Talk started really because of our friendship, and we realized like we talk about all the time that we talk about these things in our personal life too, not just during the like hours that we're working. So we have decided that we really want to make sure that we still continue to connect like through Real Talk with you all and with each other on topics that are so important. So I think that obviously, sorry, I'm like trying to find my words. Doing this work as an advocate is so important to me, and I want to stay connected to the campus community and like everything that we've done and the connections that we've made, so we are able to continue with Real Talk with me shifting to like more of a volunteer role. So I think that's super exciting. We'll still get to do Real Talk and have these conversations and engage with guest speakers, and like Cara can help obviously facilitate any kind of feedback or follow-up or whatever happens for people or comes up for people watching this. And then we will bring that back to future episodes or whatever that looks like. But I am really excited to still get to do this. I'm like super honored that Cara still wanted to do this with me, even after I have essentially in a way broken up with her as a coworker.
And that was a total joke, obviously, for a viewer, because it is, I am really not going to get emotional right now. It is so hard to imagine not working side by side with Sydney, but this, like Sydney said, this whole campus weekly video series started because we realized like it's rooted in our friendship and that's not going away. So we want to continue it. And I'm really honored that you want to continue it and excited because then I get to still see your face every week. So I think it's important because the joke obviously is like, oh, you're breaking up with me as your coworker. But obviously we know breakups are really difficult to navigate no matter what. Like the loss of, I think even breaking up with a friend sometimes, like that's not what we're doing here, obviously. But sometimes you do have to like end relationships with people in your life, whether it's because of toxicity or like unhealthy behaviors, or it's just you're not a good fit anymore for maybe your dating relationship, whatever it may be. So our conversation today is kind of focusing primarily on dating relationships, on a healthy relationship that is coming to an end. So we just wanted to preface it with, if you find yourself in an abusive relationship or an unhealthy relationship, this conversation may not necessarily apply because of safety concerns. So we'll kind of talk about that a little bit at the end, but we just wanted to kind of preface it with this conversation is focusing primarily on if you're in a healthy or relatively healthy relationship and that is ending in one way or another, how to kind of navigate that, how to cope with it. So yeah, we wanted to start with talking about maybe if you're the one who is kind of made that decision, or maybe is in the process of making that decision to end the relationship, which that alone can be really hard to even find yourself in that position of like, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore, even if it's healthy, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I like that you said the process of it too, because I think it's really rare that, especially in a healthy relationship, you're going to wake up one day and just be like, nope, like, you know, like I've decided that I'm out today.
Right.
Like, especially if you're in a committed relationship, right? Like it might be one thing if you're like hooking up with someone or whatever, and you're like, yeah, I'm not into doing that.
Right.
Friends with benefits or whatever you want to call it. But like if you're in a committed long-term relationship, or it's been a couple months, whatever it might be, I think it is a process of realizing like, I am not getting what I need out of this relationship anymore. And that's at no fault of my partner or whatever, or somebody's moving or something shifting or changing or whatever. And like you're realizing it has to come to an end so that you can move forward in your own world or something. Like it's totally a process. And it's something that I think one of the things that is first coming to mind is like reaching out to a friend or someone you trust to like process what you're going through. Cause it's just a lot to like think of on your own.
Totally. And it's almost, and I would even argue that sometimes it can be really helpful to get outside perspectives and thoughts, but sometimes it can be a hindrance because like maybe it's your family and those things can influence you staying in a relationship. Maybe they're like, I remember when we were talking about preparing for this episode, you mentioned like friend circles and things like that. It almost sometimes can be harder, depending on your situation, if your partner is also in your friend group, or if your family loves your partner and is like, oh my gosh, you two are going to get married, or you're going to stay together forever, and like they're very involved in your relationship, that can play a huge role in influencing your decision. So depending on the situation, it could be either really helpful to turn to friends and family for support and like, I think I've made this decision, I don't know how to go about it, or whatever, can I get your feedback, like your thoughts? Or it might be more helpful to kind of do it on your own or with support from someone who isn't directly involved in that relationship in some way.
Well, I think what I know when I was contemplating like my next steps for just like leaving the women's center or whatever that was going to look like, I had a preconceived idea of like who I could turn to in my life that might, give me, no, you should stay, or yes, you should go, or whatever that looked like, and made conscious decisions of who to turn to help me process that next step for me, or this decision that I was trying to make.
Right.
And I think we as people can reflect on our like relationships with our friends or our parents or aunts, cousins, uncles, whoever, whatever it might be, of like, who would be a helpful person for me to turn to? Right? Who can I trust to not villainize my partner and say, yeah, you should break up with them because they're a jerk and we don't like them? Or instead, like, how can I be here for you? What do you need? Like, I want, as my best friend, I want you to be happy, or what, as my sister, I want you to be happy. Is this relationship not doing that for you anymore? Like, how can I help you figure that out?
Totally. Yeah. And that's exactly why I think this is all a way of saying and recognizing that breaking up is hard. Like, it's hard enough in a healthy relationship. Obviously, we're not really talking about unhealthy or abusive relationships where there's power and control and manipulation or isolation, like all those other layers to it. It's hard enough when it's a healthy relationship to make that decision to end that relationship. It's a loss in some way. And so, like, if you find yourself, sometimes I think they may wake up one day and have that epiphany moment. Maybe they won't make the decision that day, but it might be like that shift, like something changed, or they opened their eyes and were like, I can't do this anymore, or this isn't right for me anymore. And so maybe it takes days, maybe it takes weeks. I know I'm the type of person, when I like think about something, it's hard to not think about it then. It's like once I have that seed planted, it's hard to ignore it or be like, nah, like it's kind of like I'm going to probably go ahead with what I'm thinking. So, and that's just how I operate, but it can be hard when those thoughts creep in, but also like it's natural, I think, obviously in thinking about the pandemic, we're still very much in the thick of it. Like relationships are strained because of this. So it's natural to have doubts or moments of like weakness in your relationship. And I think that's fair and doesn't mean it has to be like, the kiss of death of the relationship, of like, oh, we had that moment of weakness, or I had that doubt that we could survive this as a couple, versus the like, almost, I guess, knowing, if that makes sense, like the gut feeling type of thing that we talk about. Yeah.
No, I hear you. And I think I was talking about this with someone just last week, and who had like maybe come to the realization of like, I don't know if this relationship is for me. But like, I love this person and want them to be happy, and I know they love me, and like, I don't know how to make that it's, and talking with them, like, this isn't a selfish choice, right? You're not being selfish.
Right. Right.
Like, because yeah, people are going to be bummed out, right? If they're not expecting the relationship to end, but that doesn't mean
Totally.
that you have to sit in those feelings of like, not unhappiness necessarily, but like just discontentment even. Like if it's not it for you, it's not it for you, and you're entitled to make that decision. I think with friends in college, whatever conversations I had with people in past relationships, right, of like, I don't want to hurt their feelings by leaving because they deserve better. Like they deserve to not feel hurt or upset. I don't want to be the person that outwardly breaks someone's heart or hurts their feelings,
Right.
but I'm not happy here. So what does that mean for me?
And that's almost not selfish, but that's almost more harmful for both of you to stay in a relationship where you are unhappy and forcing yourself to try to be happy, or lying to yourself or lying to your partner just to try to like not hurt them. It almost probably will hurt them more in the end if you're not being honest with yourself about how you feel. So yeah, it's hard, but it shows how compassionate people are, that they're like, I don't want to hurt this person, I don't want to break their heart, you know.
Right. And I think like what I was thinking too, when you said before about like it not having to be the kiss of death, like, is this something, the thing that you woke up today and felt irritated about, is it something that communicating with your partner about it can fix? And
Right,
like
can you work it out?
oh, I feel like we don't do anything, they don't make me feel special. Can you communicate those needs to your partner?
Right.
That's a whole nother episode, but
Yeah,
like
a whole other.
versus no, this just, there's no workaround here, and whether we
Right.
communicated about it or not, like it's too late, I'm not in this, whatever it might be, I think is another, that like pit of your stomach or that gut feeling of no, this is over.
Yeah, yeah, the pit in the stomach is kind of what I was trying to visualize and put into words, of like, it's just some kind of knowing that things are not going to get better, or that like, and maybe it's a falling out of love thing. Like sometimes I think, and especially like thinking back, not to get too, I won't get too personal, but like thinking about when I was in college and like the relationships I had, like there are certain relationships, and I hate to say this like in an insensitive way, but that serve a certain purpose. Like maybe this was the first relationship out of, you know, like out of high school, that it's like your first adult relationship, and maybe that's the one that lasts forever and whatever. Or maybe this is the relationship that got you through a really hard time, and then it kind of, not to say served its purpose, that sounds so like impersonal, but like maybe that person came into your life for a reason, and then that's, I think when people grow apart, it can be sometimes for that reason of like, I needed this person and they brought me, you know, got me through this really hard time in my life, but now that I'm better, or I'm a different version of myself, they don't fit into my life anymore, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing. So that sounds so weird to say that it's like served a purpose, but
No,
yeah.
I hear you. I think people bring different things, and it was like when you just said like they came in your life for a reason, like there's that saying, like people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime kind of a thing. And I
Yeah,
think it's like corny, but it makes sense. But also
right.
like obviously we're working and talking with like the college population about this. When you're dating someone in high school and you go to two different colleges or something, or you graduate from college and like this person's moving on to medical school or graduate school or whatever and has to move across the country, versus one partner staying here and like is still in school or whatever it looks like.
Wherever you're at in life may be different. Yeah.
Right. Like things shift and change, and there's just these natural moments with graduations or like different semesters or whatever that looks like for people that might show up in the relationship, right? Like it might impact your desire to want to continue to be in that relationship, or this person says, look, I'm entering this new phase of my life. It's going to take up all of my time, and I don't know that I'm going to have the time to dedicate to the relationship in the way that I did.
Right.
You're allowed to have a feeling about that and want to make some kind of change if you do, or not want to make the change.
Yeah. And if you're on the receiving end, like let's say you're not the person choosing to end that relationship, that perspective can be so helpful to not, because like obviously it's hard to just like not be heartbroken anymore, right? Like it's not like you can just flip the switch and be like, okay, I see it this way, so I'm not sad anymore. Like feel your feels, grieve the relationship in whatever way makes sense for you. But also if it if it helps, thinking of it as like, this person entered my life for a reason and they're exiting it for a reason too.
Right.
Like, breakups don't just happen because like people love each other so much and then, oh, we just broke up. Like, there's a reason for the relationship ending, even if you can't see it, or maybe even if you don't agree with it, you might be blindsided, but it may be helpful to think of it as like, you know, one day this will make sense. And
Right.
it may not be the day that it ends. It may not be a month later, or 2 months later, or 6 months later, but one day you'll look back and be able to say, like, they came into my life for a reason and our relationship ended for a reason. And whether that's they're not the right person for me, or our paths were going different ways, it's really hard to see that in college. It's very hard to see that in high school, especially. Like, I'm glad you mentioned that example of coming into college with a high school relationship.
Right.
There are plenty of people who make it and, you know, totally like their relationships work, you know, from high school and on until whenever. But it's okay if you're growing out of the person that you used to be. College for a lot of people is that time of like discovering who they are. And if you're maybe still in the process of that, but your partner has, you know, for some way or in some ways have kind of realized like, oh, I'm not the person I used to be when we started dating and this isn't a good fit for me anymore.
Yeah.
You might not be there yet, and that's okay. But recognizing and understanding and respecting that that's where they're at, which I know is a lot easier said than done.
Right. And I think, like you mentioned it before, if you're on the receiving end of it, whether it's something you're blindsided by or you've seen it coming and maybe you're trying to make things work for however long you can, and then eventually somebody is ready to call it quits, like, it is so important to feel whatever feelings you have that come with that, and like self-care, and lean on your support systems and figure out like what is it that you need to make space for how you're feeling. Like, some people might dive right into a new relationship, some people might take time to be on their own and like swear off dating forever, some people might into music or turn to like their schoolwork and just like put their nose to the books and kind of study hard. And I think you're the expert at what you need, and like I think it's just really important to honor however it is that you're feeling. And like, they can be uncomfortable emotions. It's a form of grief, right? You're gonna feel the loss of this person in your life, no matter what role they had. Like, if you're not able to pick up your phone and just text them in the same way, there's a difference in your day-to-day routine now. And it's okay, as scary as it might be, to sit with that and feel it. And like, my thoughts are just like, it is important in every way, every conversation that you and I have during Real Talk, it is like, feel your feelings, like honor the way you're showing up. And this doesn't change for that too, just because it might be like scary or uncomfortable. It sucks to be broken up with. It doesn't feel good. If that person is in your friend group, now what does this mean for where I'm supposed to sit when I go to lunch, or like they're in my class and this feels awkward. I think, you know, we're kind of coming down to our time for the conversation that we have like today, but there's so many other dynamics of this, and like, you're entitled to just figure it out for in whatever way works for you. And like, the Women's Center is here for you in terms of like, if you need counseling or support of just like, my relationship has ended and it was super healthy and it was great, but like, I need something. Right. Counseling services is here for you. We have like support groups, like all of these things. Like, I think sometimes people are like, oh, whatever, like I'll just go on a date tomorrow and it'll be fine. And like, maybe some people feel pressured to be that way too. And like, you don't have to be. It's okay to say like, I am upset about this, and like, it sucks that I don't have it, even if you can get to like, I will understand it one day. And they were really respectful and they always treated me well. And like, I'm so grateful for what they did for me. So I think like, lean on your support systems. It's okay. And it's going to be fun is not the right word, but like in a sarcastic kind of a way, to figure out how to navigate what that might look like in a smaller community, like a university or college campus or something like that.
I was going to say my final kind of like thought about this too. And I guess this is more from speaking specifically to the college population. Like, this is a time that grieve, take all the time you need to like process those emotions. Or if you're the type of person who does jump into a new relationship, like that's okay too, but just knowing you're doing it for a reason that feels good rather than for like, I need to feel better about this hurt, so I'm going to jump into something to fill the void. Like that may not be a healthy choice for you. So I think honoring like the space and time that you might need to figure out what do you need, like use this experience. Every relationship that you're in will teach you about what you want, what you deserve, what you need. So use it as like a learning opportunity to say, yes, okay, this person provided me with all these wonderful, amazing things, but we broke up for a reason. What was that reason? Maybe it was because like we didn't communicate well. Maybe it was because we were just going in different paths. So I want someone who's more aligned with my kind of vision for what I'm hoping for in the future. But I would also say like, take the time to reflect, right? Figure out what you want in a relationship. I don't think we do that a lot. Like I never did that in high school or anything. And it was a lot of times, and I know this is not wrong, but relationships can be based off of initial attraction, like physical attraction. And then it just kind of develops, right, from there, which is fair. But if you're going through a breakup, take some time to think about what do you want in a partner? What do you deserve in a relationship? And don't, have like a checklist and like cut people off if they don't necessarily, like fit in that, but find that deal breaker, find those values that are important to you. But then my other thought is take the time to date yourself too. Like really like get to know you. Like maybe you are growing and changing in ways that you may not even see. So take the time to get to know yourself a little more. Like, like you were saying of like maybe people like dive into studying or dive into music or whatever, like find new hobbies, find new things that fill that void in an independent way. That way, because we talk about all the time, my motto for people is like, we glorify the whole, I'm looking for my other half. I'm, this is my like soulmate, whatever. I'm nothing without this person. They're everything to me. And I really try to emphasize like you are a whole person all by yourself. And when you're in a relationship, it's two whole people coming together and sharing their lives together. Which is awesome. But if you are looking for someone to make you whole, maybe use that time in that breakup to look for the other things that make you whole. Maybe that's your friendships. Maybe that's your hobbies and interests and creativity or whatever. But that would be my final like thought, is to like get to know yourself, what makes you a whole person. And then that might set you up even better for your next relationship.
Right. Totally. And I think you're so on point. And I'm so glad you were saying that, because that's what I was thinking too, was like for your next relationship, like you're going to bring you to it.
Right.
Like your partner's going to be different, but you're always going to be there. So like, it's exciting to get to spend some time with yourself. It might be hard. It might be scary for people, but like how cool that like now you have all this energy to pour into yourself. And like in the same way that we're always talking about like your needs in a relationship matter.
Right.
They matter whether you're single or dating or in a super committed relationship with someone or whatever. It's cool to get to figure out what they are and what that looks like, and use the relationship that's ending to inform that. Like, oh, I liked this, but I didn't like that. Which I think is cool and fun and worth exploring for people, especially in college, because it's like the time to do it. But I think, like you mentioned in the beginning, I want to kind of touch on, if you are trying to navigate leaving an abusive relationship, one that you've identified as unhealthy or toxic, or that makes you feel unsafe in any way at all, please know that the Women's Center is here for you to help you kind of figure out what is a specific safety plan to get you out of that relationship. We know that the most dangerous time in an abusive relationship is when someone is leaving and that abuser is losing power and control. So it is important to recognize that in some ways your safety might be at risk, right? In a healthy relationship, you'll know that you're going to be safe leaving. Like you're not worried that like stuff is going to happen or things might get really intense or whatever that'll look like. Right. But if you've ever questioned, like, is this person really controlling or manipulative or whatever, it might be worth checking in with an advocate, reaching out and getting some support. And again, we'll never judge you. There's never going to be any kind of like, how could you let this go on or whatever. Like, the Women's Center is here to help you facilitate that next step for yourself, and whatever that looks like, however you have to have that conversation, but you're deserving of a safe opportunity to leave that relationship. And then, especially if you're on campus and that person's on campus too, what is that going to look like for you? How can we help you feel safe is a hugely important thing that, you know, is worth time and effort and understanding. Does that make sense? Do you feel like
that was perfectly said? All I was thinking about, in addition to just how perfectly that was said to the issues that we're talking about, is just how much I'm going to miss working with you. So I'm so grateful that we're going to continue Real Talk together, because I appreciate these conversations, and I hope our audience does. Please give us feedback. You know, we're always looking for topics that are relevant to you all, but I just want to take this quick opportunity to just thank you, Sydney, for being the absolute most amazing colleague and coworker in the universe. And for all your future people that are going to work with Sydney Treza, you're really lucky. Just an announcement to the world. If you ever have the honor of working with this fabulous human being, you are so lucky. So I love you.
Oh my God, I'm not ready to like cry about it yet. But I love you, and I'm so thankful for you for coming up with this idea for Real Talk. Like, I feel like it's been the coolest way to kind of explore and learn more about myself, and like how I want to, you know, like reach out to the world about these like really important issues. And I love getting to do it with you, and I'm gonna miss working with you every day, all day. It's been the most incredible experience ever, and I'm gonna miss the community that we serve and the people that we've worked with. And I'm really honored that like I feel like this is still a good next step, and that it's gonna still be like really awesome to continue to work with and like engage with our community through Real Talk. If anybody has any questions, if I've worked with anybody individually, like I've tried to connect with everybody and kind of explain what that might look like, what next steps are. The Women's Center is not going anywhere. Like the Women's Center will be here. Cara is here. I'll try to be here. Like I'm trying to figure out what that language is, but like still have support. You still have support. Right. There's ways to access it. What our hotlines, our office phone, our campus office phone, via email, all of that stuff. We always put Cara's email in the comment section or in the caption of the post when we post Real Talk. Reach out. Cara can help you figure out what next steps look like. If you were thinking of reaching out in the spring, someone will be here for you. Like you're not alone. But if you have thoughts or questions about that, or about the specific topic that we talked about today, I feel like it was fun to talk about that stuff, but there's so much more that we could say.
Yeah.
Reach out to us, like Cara was saying, we love feedback. We liked when we get feedback or suggestions on topics. You can reach out to us via email or phone. And remember that these episodes are all recorded and will be available to view on IGTV and on Facebook. Please share them with your friends. Stay tuned for next week's episode. And thank you so much for joining us. And I thank you, Cara, for everything that you said.
Thank you for everything you do. And thanks everyone for listening. Yes. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.